So, episode 2 of an anime is, or even just a show, it's a pretty tough one, right? I'm of the belief that in some regards, a second episode to a show is kind of more important than a first episode. If the first episode's good, then there's a chance that could just be a fluke, or that they're just saving their budget for the first episode, or this and that. Episode 2 has a lot of stress and tension put on it, because it needs to prove whether or not your enjoyment of the first episode was a fluke, right? It needs to show that it can reliably replicate the things you liked about the show in every episode, or at the very least most episodes. And especially with how the first episode of overdress premiered early, that meant that we got a good 2 or so weeks to talk about the first episode and think about what the rest of the show would be like. And yeah, I'm kind of disappointed, a little bit at least, that most of that discourse was rolled around whether or not the rest of the episodes would actually show card fights. And don't get me wrong, that was a pretty big sticking point for me for the first episode of Vanguard overdress. I was worried about whether or not they were going to show card fights and do them justice. And that was something that tripped me up with V-Series, because I didn't think the V-Series reboot had particularly great plot, characters, or card fights, and so I was just kind of sat there wondering why I was even watching at that point. But I'm very happy to say that the second episode was very good. The second episode was debatably better than the first, and I can't believe I'm actually saying that. I don't know if that's just because the episode only just aired, and that's me being hyped up and everything, but I went in so worried that, well, my enjoyment of the first episode was just a fluke. Because whilst I really, really enjoyed that first episode, and whilst there was a lot that was really excellently done, I was kind of worried that episode 2 would just leave me kind of disappointed. My expectations were so high, and they managed to entertain me, basically, I guess. So let's talk about the episode. Should we talk about the card fight first? Alright, let's talk about the card fight first. So, yeah, a lot of discourse about the card fights. And that's understandable. There's a card game anime, you want to see the card game, right? If this isn't going to focus on Cardfight Vanguard, then why call it Cardfight Vanguard? I understand that, but I think there's been far too much emphasis being put on that discourse. Because the first episode had a really fun, easy to follow, for me anyway, I could follow the card fight. And the animation was fantastic. And I think the same thing happened here in episode 2. I don't see a problem with this. I'm sorry, if you don't like the card fights in overdress, then that's okay, because they are done very differently stylistically, but I thought it was good here. And you know what I think was even better is that the one in this episode was confident. It knew that the thing we liked in the first episode was the violence Bruce Sakuga moment, and so it got rid of it here. It was like, nope, you ain't seeing the units. It was such an obvious and easy choice to show like a Sakuga moment with Verena or Nirvana Dragon or whatever. That was what we were all expecting, I assume, but it didn't. We did get some Sakuga, but it was definitely smaller. It wasn't as long as the previous episode. And it wasn't on Planet Cray. We didn't see any Cray units. The entire card fight in this episode was just the two characters sitting at a table and putting the cards down on that table. And you know what? I kind of love it because it's so confident. It knows that the characters here are so likable, and it knows that the card game itself is so intrinsically good that just showing these two characters with these cards, placing them on a table like this, is good, basically. It's confident, it knows what it's doing, and I really enjoyed the card fight. I was left suspenseful. I was like, are they gonna cut to Cray or not? No. Are they gonna, there's so much good stuff here, basically. I really liked this card fight. And I really liked that it was showing yuyu learning. It wasn't an outright tutorial card fight like we usually get, where a character just goes, okay, this is this card and this is how this works. And I don't really think, not to go too far into the card fight controversy and stuff with this anime, because that could be its own video at some point, but I don't think you're owed a tutorial, right? Not in the anime. Yu-Gi-Oh! Basically never, as far as I'm aware, bothers teaching you how to play. And so why should this, right? Obviously, I like the tutorial card fights, but if we don't want to do them this series, then I don't think we should have to do them this series. You know, it acknowledged that Yuyu was learning the ropes and made sure to point out certain rules so that you knew to follow along with them and pay attention. But it's also going along with the assumption that you've already got the decks and are already playing with them, and because the decks are so cheap, I think that's justified. I think it's justified for this anime to assume you have experience by now. Obviously, the decks aren't out in English, but to be fair, the English dub version of this episode hasn't aired yet either, so I think that's okay. I think it's totally justified and fine for this episode to go in with the assumption that either you already know how to play with these decks, or you don't care and you're here for the characters instead. I think that's totally justified, and I think the actual card fight was really fun to watch. It was very tense, and I think the fact that the visuals were just these characters standing by a table and putting the cards down was genuinely genius. Because, again, it shows that confidence in the card game. It's like, yeah, we can do the Sakuga. Yeah, we can do the really cool animation. But you know what? This time we're just going to let the game speak for itself. And you know what? That was something I was really worried about. I was worried when overdress first got announced that they were kind of like embarrassed of the franchise's origins, but this is a direct refutation to that. This is the anime going, no, not only are we not embarrassed, we are confident, we know that this game kicks ass, and so we're just going to show these characters playing the game. Is it a fast card fight? Absolutely. Could I follow along with it? Yes. Did I enjoy it? Yes. Was I kind of on the edge of my seat? Kinda. Like, it was just really good. You know? And again, I know we're going to have this argument about whether or not the card fight was good in literally every single episode. And trust me, if there is a future card fight that I don't like, I will let you know. You know this. If you've seen my V-Series reboot videos, you'll know that I'll complain when there's a card fight I don't like. But I really enjoyed this card fight. I'm not lying. So let's actually get into the episode now, because don't get me wrong, I was looking forward to the card fight. I was interested to see how they do it, and I was wondering whether or not this was going to be a two-parter, but it wasn't. But let's talk about the rest, right? One thing, I love the attention to detail in the series. In the older series of Vanguard, when they go into a card shop or whatever, you'd see the advertisements and stuff in the background, and they would be like showing advertisements that had images of Aichi on them or something. Seriously, go back and check the 2011 Cardfight Vanguard anime. You will see Aichi in the card shop, standing in front of a poster with Aichi on it. That's weird. Whereas here, they're actually used for world building. You know, not only do they not contradict the stuff that's here, it's actually showing us that V Premium format does exist, because you've got Gabrielle here. I think that's really cool. Are we ever going to see more of V Premium in this anime? Probably not, but the idea that they acknowledged it is really neat. I like that. And it's just the little attention to detail stuff, you know? I really like that stuff. So, okay, let's talk about the plot. Not to like recap it or anything, but basically the general idea was that Megumi was jealous of how close Yuyu and Danji were together, and so starts kind of following them and then gets really jealous. I guess she feels like she's being replaced already. She's got some kind of problems, you know, she doesn't have self-confidence. She feels like she's being replaced, and that's a real anxiety. It kind of feeds back into the thing I was saying earlier in the previous one about how Blackout is kind of this collection of outcasts, and Megumi is perhaps an outcast because she feels like she doesn't belong anywhere else. And so the second she sees the other members of Blackout start to kind of warm up to Yuyu, she feels like she's being replaced. And wow, what a really like deep kind of thing to go into whilst also disguising it as a complete joke like this. Like, I thought the jokes were kind of funny, alright? And again, I didn't think they were particularly in poor taste either. I thought they were funny, I thought they were cute, you know, like, I like that they were willing to acknowledge the elephant in the room of being like, hey, so is Danji gay or not? And, I mean, it seems like they're confirming it, sure. I mean, it's definitely not subtext anymore, at the very least. They actually make that a plot point. And so I like how kind of meta that is already. That's really, really cool. But the fact that they were able to get into such kind of like a deep and interesting character flaw like that, and also kind of conveying it as if it was a lighthearted joke, it kind of shows that you get out of this episode what you put in. If you want to see a cool card fight, you get a cool card fight. If you want to see this cool like character building and stuff, you get it. If you're just here for the silly jokes, you get your silly jokes. I really like that. It's kind of like an anime for everyone, and this time it doesn't seem like there's any compromises, at least not in my opinion anyway. I mean, obviously there are going to be people who don't like how any of that stuff was executed, but I actually liked how all of it was executed, so hey, there we go. I really like the introduction of Trickstar. I really like, one thing I kind of compare it to is like a starter Pokemon in Pokemon, where danji kind of shows you a bunch of cards and go, hey, which one do you want to use? And you use like, it's Trickstar, I like the cute one, and immediately I love that. I love that we have a character, because danji even says like, hey, this card's kind of underpowered, no one uses it, it's not very popular, why are you going for it? But Yuyu's like, I don't care, I just want the cute one. And I really like that, because it's realistic, because that's what I do. I don't pick the one that's top of the meta charts, because meta charts are temporary. Card cuteness is forever. So there's that. And it did reaffirm one of my theories that card is important to danji, because, well, Yuyu says, hey, this card's important to you, isn't it? And danji's like, yes. So very interesting subtext there. I don't know. But yeah, I really like that. I also really like that it showed some of the other decks here. You got Barrow Magnus, you've got Bastion over there. You know, you got some cool other decks. No more Angels though, that's kind of sad. And then I also liked the focus on deck building. We didn't actually really get to see him build the deck, but I liked that we kind of dove into some of that stuff. We have these other characters getting out their cubes and showing it to him, which, by the way, that's the most realistic thing to happen in a cargame anime. The moment someone's like, hey, I want to build a deck, everyone immediately gets their cubes out and goes, here you go, build a deck. Like, practically tripping over themselves to show him their cards. That's pretty good. One thing I noticed, too, by the way, was that Seto says that Dragon Empire is the least popular nation, which I don't know if there's going to be any story significance there, but I like that. I like the idea. It kind of shows you as an underdog. The fact that he's using, in universe, the least popular deck. Is it the least popular deck in real life? Probably not. I don't know, actually. I think it's too early in the era to say for sure. But I do like that in the anime, at least, they kind of have that little, like, underdog sort of element to it. It's like the exact opposite of Aichi, right? Where Aichi showed his Blaster Blade and everyone went, whoa, that's such a cool card! Whereas Yuyu shows everyone his Trickstar, and they're like, wow, that's a really underpowered card. One of those is more interesting than the other to me, and I know for sure which one it is. By the way, wasn't originally the biggest Seto fan, but her silly little poses like this, they're winning me over. And that's another thing, I love the character acting. All the expressions and stuff in this episode are fantastic. They're really good. I think that's what made a lot of the comedy in this episode work, so I really like that stuff. Yeah, I just really like this episode, man. Like, I don't know if there's much more to go into it than that. It's just a simple little fun episode. We did have, like, the little scene with Zakuza talking about, like, self-identity and everything, and I'm sure that's foreshadowing for a lot. I'm just not quite sure what yet, because, well, the episode only just aired, so I kind of need to ruminate on that a bit more, but they used the very not subtle drawing of a butterfly to signify that, and, well, you know, we all know what that's a metaphor for, so I'm starting to think that Zakuza is like Clamp's self-insert character in this anime. You know, like, because Zakuza seems very Clamp, like, more so than the rest of the characters so far, and of course, I'm sure that's the thing everyone wants me to mention, this character appears at the end of the episode. Who is he? I don't know. I don't have the answers there. You probably wanted me to, like, explain who this guy was or what I thought he was going to be or anything. I have no clue. He might be a villain. He looks fairly menacing and threatening from what they saw, but knowing this anime, there's also the chance it could be a subversion and he could be, like, Danji's best friend or something. I don't know. You know, like, this anime seems too smart for me so far, honestly. I like that we got to see more of the other members of Blackout. Again, I don't know if they're going to really do much, you know, like in terms of, but I like the idea that there's a community, you know, that's forming, and it's not just a group of like 5 or so people. The idea that there's a lot of people here. I like that we didn't see Izagaya and Toya, because yeah, they weren't members of Blackout. They were just challengers for danji in the previous episode. They weren't actually members. So that's interesting. On that note, Yuyu hasn't earned his Blackout sleeves yet. So I'm assuming at some point in the future he's going to have to undergo some kind of trial or whatever to earn those sleeves, because the other characters seem to have them, but Yuyu does not have those sleeves yet. So I like that not only are we getting card sleeves, but we're actually making the card sleeves a plot element. And yes, he does have those card sleeves in the opening. And again, I just love how they kind of visualize the imagination aspect by having like Yuyu's arm go on fire and everything. That stuff's really, really nice. So yeah, I don't think I really left anything out there. I just really like this episode. I think these characters are so likable so far. I think the comedy is like genuinely pretty good. You know, like obviously with anime, what you see is what you get when it comes to comedy. But I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was entertaining to see these characters hanging around. And I got very invested. I just wanted to see what happened with them. Surprising lack of plot, I guess. You know, like this was just doubling down on just we're introducing these characters still. We're showing more and more of these characters. And I really like that. I'm sure we will get a lot of plot soon, but I like the idea that it is still taking things slow. We've only got 12 episodes, and then another 13 later on at some point. So that's not very many episodes, but the idea it's still taking its time anyway is actually very reassuring. I was kind of worried we'd be speeding through things too quickly, but the fact that we got an entire episode just dedicated to setting up these characters some more and actually showing Yuyu play his first card fight is very, very good. I like that. I'm a big fan of that. Yeah. I think that's basically all I have to say. Again, I don't think this was a particularly deep episode or anything like that, other than, you know, Megumi's kind of character arc there, or at least the beginning to an arc. She seems very, like, easily thrown off, I guess. She seems like, it seems like she's been in a situation before that makes her overprotective of herself, and so every time she sees anyone else happy, she sees that as a challenge. And I'm very interested to see what they do with that. Again, I'm not going to go too deep into my theory because I already mentioned that in a previous video, but I am interested to see, because it does kind of seem to confirm my theory at least, but I don't know if that's me reading too deep into it. But yeah, let me know what you thought of the episode. Let me know if there's any cool little things I missed out, because there's a lot of small little details in this episode, and I feel like if I was to list them all off, I'd be here all day. Yeah, no, I really liked what I saw. I really liked what I saw. This is, like, it feels weird to be this excited. This episode I was genuinely really excited for, and yeah, I liked it. So there we go, 2 for 2. We're doing it. We're the Vanguard anime is good again. Not just good, but like actually great. So yeah, be sure to like, be sure to comment on what stuff you liked from this episode, or comment with your disagreements. I guess that's always okay too. And subscribe if you want to see more overdress videos. As you can probably guess, I did do an episode 1 review and some other videos about the overdress anime, so go ahead and check those out. And remember, for every statement, there's an asterisk. And I'll see you later with more videos.